to get into TV, radio and film. For those of you who are discovering it for the first time, welcome. My name's Samina Kiyani. I'm a broadcast journalist and TV producer. I've been working in this business for over 25 years, and I wanted to use my experience and be of service to the next generation of creatives. And so I'm doing a series of interviews with industry professionals to create a resource for young people to refer to, young people who want a career in TV, radio or film. I invite you to join me and my guests each week and discover for yourself all the different pathways available in this business, because I promise you there's no one set route into this business. And discover for yourself all the different roles available. There are a plethora of different positions in this business that a lot of you might not even know about, but you will discover. Now it's time to introduce my guest. She's a composer, and some of her music's been used for some huge shows across TV, including Big Brother, BBC News, The Apprentice, and Celebrity Masterchef. Welcome, Claire Batchelor. How are you, Claire?
Hi, Samina. Lovely to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure having you. So first question, as I pose to every single guest, because young people are really interested to know as to how us professionals got into this business. Tell me, how did you get into composing for TV and why?
So I started out in sort of little rock bands as a teenager, and I used to love songwriting and writing music, and I never really considered it as a career, to be totally honest with you, until I went to university. And I was studying music performance, and my university also did a course on music composition for TV and film. And I just heard about what they were doing on this course and talked to the tutors, and I said, can I change my course? This sounds amazing. And they let me change, and I just absolutely loved it. I totally fell in love with it, writing to picture, writing to brief, and learning all about TV and film music. And so yeah, there you go. I changed my degree, got my degree, and then started looking for sort of low budget short films. I had a couple of TV commercials early on that I was really lucky to land, and took off from there, really.
So let's rewind, because you're very successful now, but I still want to just stick to what, how you began, because I think that's really important to share with others, because it might give some inspiration to others to how they could follow in your footsteps. So you change your degree, you've got this passion. Talk to me about that passion and how you were, did you do extra projects for yourself, or was it just stuff you did at university? And how did you get those short films? How did you get your foot in the door, so to speak?
It was really reaching out to people that inspired me. I looked for filmmakers, I looked for student filmmakers. There were students at my university that were making films, and part of my course was to actually look for a short film to score as part of my degree. So it was really reaching out. I didn't know anyone in the TV industry. It was completely grassroots, completely growing it from the ground up. And when I finished my degree, I moved back in with my dad so I could save money. I didn't have to pay any rent. And
always helps, doesn't it?
Always helps, yes, yeah. Absolutely. And I started contacting local video production companies, just people making corporate videos. And luckily, one of them, out of the blue, said, oh, we've actually landed a TV commercial, and you're like the only composer we know. So they wanted me to do a bit of music for that. And it was really from the ground up. I didn't know anyone, and I reached out to local companies, filmmakers, anyone that inspired me, and I thought, might have a chance of writing some music for them, really.
Do you know what's interesting with what you've just said? There's two ways for me to interpret what you've just said. One is, oh, she got lucky. But the other one is, oh, wow, she created her own luck, because you really put a lot of effort in and, got in touch with people, started connecting with people. And that's how you generate possibilities, right?
Absolutely. I think you really do generate a lot of your own luck, and, you have to show up, you have to reach out. Otherwise, if people don't know that you exist or that your music exists, they're never going to hire you. So it's absolutely about being proactive, I would say.
And these days, how do you ensure that you're seen and that your work gets heard? How do you get the jobs these days?
I mean, I still do a lot of the old things that I used to do, to be honest. But now that I've had some, really amazing TV shows, really lucky to use my music on them, and I've got a lot of different clients, there is a bit of word of mouth that goes on. And also you just become a bit more visible. So I've now got a show reel that I could send to somebody and say, oh well, my music's been used in this and this, and then they can see, oh yeah, I can see you've done some quite big things. And so it gets easier, a little bit easier, when you're sort of reaching out to people once you've had some decent work on your show reel.
So tell me, for those starting out, what advice do you give? They want to follow in your footsteps, they're interested in music, maybe they've never considered, oh, I can produce, I can compose for TV. What advice can you give them in terms of kit, in terms of what they need to do? Just some, the best tips you can give, because you've been through that experience yourself.
I would highly recommend going the degree route, actually. And look for a college or university that really has, good reviews and is a really high quality university, because there are so many skills you need to be a TV composer or film composer. And sort of doing it academically, I think, is quite important, because you learn, you really study film music in real depth. You just learn so much, and I think it'd be very hard now to do that on your own. I think a lot of composers, historically have, been allowed to sort of make more mistakes. They meet a director and they're sort of propelled to stardom because that director, they did some short films together or whatever, and you can still go that route. But I think now there's, you're sort of expected almost, I think, to have some sort of academic background. And I think people that don't can absolutely be successful as well. But I know that I use a lot of things that I learned on my degree still to this day. So that's why I would certainly recommend that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting discussion in itself, whether you need a degree or not to get into this business. And music is very particular, composing music. Now, for somebody who, say, for example, can't afford to do a degree, then what? But they're really passionate about music and they've got, a good ear and a good visual eye, then what?
You can absolutely still do it. And, there's lots of people who haven't been to university. But obviously you are going to need to be a musician. So you would have had to have had music lessons. And, well, you can self-teach yourself on YouTube nowadays as well. So, and in fact, they're talking of YouTube, there is so much information out there that is free. You absolutely don't have to pay the tens of thousands to go to university. You could do an online course or a shorter course or something like, look for free resources. So yeah, there are absolutely ways to do it, but you've got to really look for it, and it's a lot more sort of doing it off your own back, looking for that information and really taking it all in.
I mean, I guess some things they could do is like you mentioned a show reel. At the beginning, you've not worked for anybody, but you could potentially take snippets or shoot your own little film or shoot little bits of content and create some music and put it to it and share that with people. That's a potential.
Absolutely. If you shoot your own footage, you could shoot a little film and you could do the music for it. That's absolutely, I know some people that have done that when they're first starting out, and that's great. And just talk to student filmmakers, that they are in the same position as you, they're just starting out and they need music for their short films, for their degree films, for their masters and things like that. And that's a great way to meet, to be on the same level as somebody. You're sort of creating your careers together. That can be really nice.
Yeah, and really I remember, in my own career, certain people I started with at the beginning, and they've reached out to me over the years because we've both grown, may have gone separate pathways, but they said, hey, so suddenly you'll get a call out of the blue saying, Samina, we need you for this, are you available? I think that's really great advice. And also online is a huge platform to showcase yourself these days. So I'm presuming you showcase your work online as well?
Absolutely, yes. Post your work everywhere, Instagram, YouTube. Just make sure you've got the rights to everything. So I wouldn't say, if you take films to practice on, make sure you've got the permission from the filmmaker, or, certainly don't take bits of TV show and write music and then put that on your website, because you won't have the permissions to do that. It's fine to practice that way at home, but You know, just make sure that when you're sharing stuff, make sure you've got all the rights to it. But absolutely, you know, use hashtags. You can meet filmmakers online, Instagram. You know, it's great for meeting people, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's really great advice. We don't want anybody getting into trouble now, do we? I mean,
Oh, no.
copyright is a big, huge issue. So yeah, a great advice from Claire. Please don't take anything that's out, been broadcast, and use it as your own and put it on your website. Not a good look. We'll get you in trouble. You've been warned. The expert. So Claire, let's talk about your role now. Describe to me the best elements of what you do, and also describe to me some of the challenges.
Well, the best elements are when you're working with somebody, it's going really well, you're both on the same page, and you write some music, they absolutely love it, and then you see it on TV, or you go to a screening, you watch the film with your music on, and it's, you know, that's the best feeling in the world, you know, watching TV and your music's on is amazing. And also, I love working with live musicians. If I am lucky to have the budget to work with live musicians, that's an amazing.
How does that work? Just give us a little snapshot and insight into what that looks like.
So when I'm writing music, I write a lot of the time just on my computer, unless it's because I'm a guitarist. So if it's a guitar part, then I'll play it myself, that's fine. But if it's a cello, violin, flute, or something like that, I'll be writing it on my computer. And if I've got a client that has a budget for live musicians, what I'll then do is create the scores from the parts that I've written with sort of the fake flute and the fake violin. And then I'll either go to a studio and record a string quartet or whatever it is, or at the moment I'm using remote musicians who take the scores, record at home, and then send me the files. And then I'll mix it all into my final project, and then I'll send that version to the client once it's all recorded and mixed. So it's an amazing experience, because you've written something on a computer that sounds, I mean, the sounds you can get now are quite amazing, but they're still not going to be as good as the real thing. So it's an amazing feeling to hear a real cellist play your cello line, or a violinist, or whatever it is. It's just a great experience.
I mean, you've shared already one of the challenges. You know, we've all been in lockdown and various constraints about social distancing during this time of pandemic, and you've described that your musicians, or the musicians you work for, can record at home and send to you, rather than you all congregating in a studio. What other challenges do you come across in your line of work?
I mean, it's a very challenging job in many ways. Working on your own a lot, it's very isolating, you know, not even in the pandemic, I'm just talking in normal times as well, because you're often just at home in your studio. You know, being freelance, you know, certainly when you're first starting out and you don't have royalties coming in from various sources, it's very difficult. And I think a lot of people will have little jobs on the side. You know, when I was starting out, I was singing in restaurants and teaching guitar and doing.
Okay, you can sing too. Fantastic.
Yes. So playing guitar, I played bass in a wedding band, all sorts of things. You know, it was mostly music related things that I was doing, but I think it's good to have those little sources of extra income when you're first starting out. And you know, it's in itself, it's a challenging job. You know, you're a lot of the time you're working with people who aren't musicians, and they're trying to describe what music they want, but they're not musicians. Sometimes it's difficult for them to describe what they're looking for, so that can be a challenge.
Interpret their vision, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're working, for example, a short film, and the director knows what they want, but they just can't put it into words, it's your job as the composer to then say, okay, maybe something a bit like this, or how about something a bit like that, and if they like it, what do they like about it? If they don't, what do they like about it? So it's very much a communication, it's a creative process, and it can be challenging, but it's rewarding. It's very rewarding.
Yeah, I see behind you, lovely studio setting you've got up. So for those young people, I'm sure they're not going to be able to afford as much as you. Maybe some are, I don't know, but I know when I was that age, I certainly couldn't have afforded all that. So what kind of tips can you give? Like, how can they start? Most people tend to have a computer, right? Or a phone.
Absolutely. And I mean, I totally started from the ground up, as I say. You know, I am a guitarist, so I had my classical guitar when I was younger, and I still got the same guitar.
Really? Okay.
And then I just built it up. You know, I've bought different guitars over the years, and upgraded my computer over the years. But when you're starting out, I mean, you can start off with quite a basic computer. You could use GarageBand, or you could use one of the cheaper versions of Cubase or Logic. And
GarageBand is a free piece of software, isn't it?
Mac.
There's plenty of free software to do audio editing out there, and recording actually.
You need to make sure that if you're writing for picture, that your software can deal with that though, and that your computer can deal with that. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to spend absolutely tons of money to start off with. You can build it up, and you know, there's so much out there now that you can get for very little money or for free. And buy a second-hand computer. You know, why not look for a second-hand? That's what I did when I was a student. I had a second-hand computer, and build it from the ground up, basically.
Yeah. I want to talk now, just move away from the music per se, but a general approach. We all experience rejection at some point in life. Life's full of it. And, you know, sometimes in our careers too. Describe to me, because what I want to convey in this is that working in our business is not always easy. It's very competitive, and you've got to really fight for your jobs, not literally, but metaphorically. So talk to me about rejection, how you handle rejection, and what is there anything to be learned from rejection?
I mean, it's hard. It is hard when you face rejection, and you'll face a lot of rejection, absolutely tons of it. And I think as you go on, you know, I think it's just about not giving up and being persistent. Believe in yourself, believe in your talents. You know, you're doing this for a reason, and I think you grow a thicker skin as you go along, because you're going to face rejection after rejection after rejection, and I think you learn. It's a learned skill, actually. You learn to deal with it better and better and better, and you learn to not take it personally. And, you know, but we all have our off days. You know, you're going to pitch for something and not get it. You think, oh, I really wanted to win that. That would have been amazing if I'd have got that job. But you just have to move on, go on to the next thing. As I say, be proactive, believe in yourself, just carry on.
And for you, Claire, in particular, say, for example, I'm sure it rarely happens, but just let's create a hypothetical if it hasn't happened to you. So you submit a piece of, a composed piece, and it comes back and they're like, rework the whole lot, or rework X amount of it. How does that make you feel? How do you deal with that?
I just get on with it. You just have to kind of get on with it. There's no
emotion out.
You have to take a bit of the emotion out. I mean, you care about what you do, and you care about what you've written, but at the end of the day, you are creating music for something. It's for somebody else. If you want to write music and not have any feedback, or not, you know, to go and write songs for fun, go and write a piece of music for fun. You know, you're being paid by somebody to write music for their project. So it's all about servicing that end product or project, whatever it is, and you know, keep your clients happy. You know, you want to do your best for them, and if they don't think it works, you know, it doesn't work. So you've just got to get on with it, really.
Yeah, you have to accept what the client says. After all, the customer is always right, especially when they're big, you know. So Claire, to wrap up, tell me, for all those people watching today who want a career in TV, radio, or film, what's the best piece of advice you can give to those young people?
I would say be persistent. You're going to get knocked back. It's very difficult to get your foot in the door, but that doesn't mean that you can't. And believe in yourself, be persistent, be polite to people, just be helpful. You know, don't hound them, but, you know, don't give up too easily either.
Claire, great advice. And it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your story and you to share about your career. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
No, you're very welcome. Now, feel free to join me each week for my series, How to Get into TV, Radio and Film. I've got more really amazing industry professionals like Claire Batchelor across a whole wide variety of roles across different ages and backgrounds who are going to share their stories and how they got into this business. And as I said earlier on, there's not just one pathway into this business, as Claire has just demonstrated very clearly. So please feel free to join me and my my guests each week and discover for yourself what it truly means to work in TV, radio, and film. You can find details of my series, all the different interviews, who I'm going to be interviewing across my social media platforms and on YouTube. So all that remains for me to say is huge thanks to Claire for taking time out to speak with me. And of course, as usual, a huge thanks to you all for joining me today. See you soon.